Welcome to this very special Q&A with the cast of American Pastoral. We come to you live from the landmark Sunshine Theater in New York City. Tonight's Q&A is being streamed live into over 20 movie theaters around the country. Like our audience here in New York, audiences around the US have just finished seeing this terrific film and now have an opportunity to participate. You can ask questions of our special guests by posting your questions on Twitter using the hashtag AmericanPastoralLive. Again, that's hashtag AmericanPastoralLive. And now please join me in welcoming Dakota Fanning and Ewan McGregor.
Hello, hello. Sorry, hello. And now Dakota Fanning.
Pulling out the suspense as long as you can.
Our entrance
Exactly
again.
right. I love it. That was
I
great.
would definitely do another take on that one.
Did you say my name?
We did. I said
You
Dakota
did?
Fanning
Oh, we
and Ewan
didn't-
McGregor. That's all right. Well,
I was paying attention.
no, well, welcome here, guys. Congratulations on this amazing film. It is
Thank
so
you.
special. Ewan, have you always known that you wanted to direct?
I have, yes. I did an interview recently in where was it? I don't know, Zurich or somewhere, and there was a guy showed me on his phone a clip of me doing an interview back in just after Trainspotting came out, which was 20 years ago, and in this interview, I see Chris Evans is asking me. He had a show called TFI Friday, and he asked me where I'll be in 20 years, and in this clip, I say that I'll be directing and acting. So it was kind of odd to see that 20 years ago, and so here I am. So I guess for over the last 20 years, I've always been looking for a story, and I didn't want to direct just for the sake of it, but I felt like it's important to have a story that you're burning to tell, and that you feel like you've got some angle on, and something that's coming from you somehow. And so I didn't ever just take a job for the sake of it, or I was waiting for a story, I suppose, and to have the courage and to find something that touched me, and that was definitely this story.
The story is so intense and beautiful. I have to ask you, Dakota, Mary is such a complex character. What were some of the keys to her for you?
I think that the thing that is very simple about Mary, probably the only thing that is simple about her, is the connection that she has to her father, to the Swede, and the love that that they have for each other, a kind of unbreakable parental-child bond. So I wanted that to be present in all of the different phases of Mary's life, and I think it's more repressed at times. She's open about it at times, but I wanted that to always be there, and I think she's a difficult character to understand for me, and I think she can be for the audience as well, but I think that was the one thing that I definitely could understand and could relate to, one of the kind of only things I could relate to as myself.
You and the entire cast is terrific. You all worked very hard on the rehearsal process, right? Walk us through that. What was that like?
Yeah, we didn't have a great deal of time before we started shooting. We had a great many camera tests to do because as you've seen this film, we go from the late 40s to the 90s, and we had to test all of those looks, and some of those involve prosthetic makeup, which was done by an amazing man, Mike Marino, here in New York, New Jersey, in fact. And so all of those different ages and looks and hairstyles, and they have to be tested in front of the camera, and we were trying different lenses and filters, and so that was our week before we started shooting, really, and that's when the actors arrived for that week. So then we had we would sit around a table and we would read scenes and discuss them, much like you might do in the early days in a play, I suppose, in the theatre. But we never really got up on our feet, and then we did that Monday to Thursday. Then on the Friday, we went to the house and we started shooting in the Lvov's family home. That was our first location, and we shot there for almost 2 weeks, I think, at the beginning of the schedule. And there we had an opportunity to rehearse all of the scenes that we shot in the house, in situ. Dan Clancy, our amazing production designer, had dressed the house. It was all ready to go, and we had a chance to rehearse there. But really, where we found the scenes and where we found the film is before every scene. And before every scene, every new scene we would clear the set, and it would just be myself and the actors, and we would be in the correct place and the correct costumes, and we would rehearse the scene until we were happy with it, and then we would show the crew, and then we would shoot it. So those private rehearsals with the actor or actors and myself were where I think the film is born. You know, I think that's where the magic happens.
How did you and Jennifer Connelly, who plays Dawn, the Swede's wife, approach your dynamic as husband and wife? Because it's so beautifully nuanced and so subtle in so many ways.
Well, we did a lot of discussing, we did a lot of talking from those early rehearsals, and then before every scene, like days, some of the scenes were more challenging to understand, I guess, than others, and we wanted to create a relationship that we believe in and that tells Philip Roth's story, and especially when the couple start after Mary disappears, the way the couple don't deal with the tragedy in the same way, and they go down separate paths. That was we wanted to chart accurately, and so we did a lot of discussing, talking about the scenes, talking about alternatives, and then again the rehearsals on set. But you know, I was very, very lucky for a first-time film director to have such amazing actors to work with. I mean, I really consider myself incredibly lucky. We premiered the film at the Toronto Film Festival some weeks ago, and I've been introduced onto a stage premieres for 24 years, but it was my great honour this time to be doing the presenting, to be standing welcoming all these amazing actors on stage, and I did take a moment looking over to my right at all of those incredible actors, and I consider myself to be very lucky.
I heard my name at the right time and came out at the appropriate moment there as well.
It is an incredible cast. I just want to remind everybody on Twitter, if you want to send your questions to American Pastoral Live, we'll get to them. Dakota, in terms of the character, so much of Mary is so unknowable. Was that a real challenge as an actress to play a character who's got so many sides to her that we just don't know?
It was, and I think that Mary is that way, and I think that's a big part of the film in general, is whether we can ever really know people. Are people knowable? So that was something about her that excited me, and it did challenge me, but I think after talking about her for so long now, I think that may be the thing that I like the most about her, that she's still a little bit of a mystery, and I think that's I think the way the film ends, she kind of stays a little bit of a mystery, and I really like that, and I think that it's important that she remains that way. So, but at the same time, you do want people to connect in some way to her, whether that's through anger with her or compassion or whatever they feel for her. So that was the balance, I guess, that you still want people to be moved by her in some way and to feel emotion for her, good, bad, whatever, but still be mysterious.
Ewan, you really connected to the film as a father, right? As both, obviously as a director, but also going into that role as a father, it really meant something to you, didn't it?
Yes, yeah. I remember reading the script for the first time and being just broken-hearted at the end of the script. I've got 4 girls, so I know very much that relationship. I'm familiar very much with the power of that unique relationship, and I think that's what struck me about it. And I think you can see there's metaphors all over the place in this film. In one way, sometimes I watch the film and I think about it as just being it's a story about our children growing up and moving away. I mean, it's a very extreme version of that, the actual story of Mary, of course, but in a way it makes me reflect upon that as our children grow up, and there's a period of time when they ruck against us, and it's a sort of natural human instinct, I think, because it gets us out the door eventually, but I've been through that with my eldest to a very low degree, I can say. It didn't last very long. And then she went off to college, and I felt that sort of loss, And so I suppose when I was reading the script the first time, I was connecting to that. I was thinking about that, albeit this is a very extreme example of that loss, yeah.
Let's take a couple of questions now from the internet. The first one, Ewan, it says you collaborated closely with your cinematographer, Martin Rouet. What was it like working with him and creating the different looks and tones for the film? It's a good question because the film looks fantastic.
Yeah, he's an amazing talent, Martin Rouet, and I found somebody that I could really be my partner. And you know, when you're acting and directing at the same time, you need somebody behind the camera that you really trust. And I've seen that relationship go wrong occasionally in my experience as an actor, when a first-time director, who invariably is going to make some stupid suggestions and come up with silly ideas now and again, which can be frustrating for a professional, experienced DP. And I found a great partner in Martin Rua, and somebody who dealt with my silly suggestions with great grace, and I always felt safe with him. And I knew that that was important because I'd be stepping out in front of his camera. He operates as well, Martin. And we spent 2 weeks of the prep period, having found most of the locations, planning the shooting of the film, really. And we didn't do, I don't like storyboards. I don't like to see storyboards on a film set because it feels to me like a bit like painting by numbers. It's annoying seeing people crossing them off. It takes sort of some of the magic out of it, and it can feel like everything's pre-planned, and I never wanted it to feel like that. Like I've said, I think the magic happens with the actors when they discover the scene on set, and I wanted the shooting to capture that. I didn't want us to have to act for the frame, but I wanted the frame to be capturing our acting, and it does feel different as an actor. If you're having to just justify somebody else's predetermined ideas, it's very unsatisfying. So we sat down, and because we'd found the locations, I had an idea of how the scenes might play. And so we would just draw them up on a whiteboard, and with the markers, I'd say, okay, maybe I'm here, and then Dakota could be sitting in the window, and maybe I go over to the bed, and then Dakota could join me at the bed, and then I'll leave. And then when we had that idea, then we would talk about how we shot it, and whether the camera would be static, whether we would move the camera, whether there would be many shots, or did we want to have this scene shoot in one shot. And that's very much to do with the sort of music of the movie. You plan the movie almost like a piece of music, really, and you know there's moments when you want the film to feel still and quiet, and then there's moments when you want to bring up the drama or the movement or something. So those decisions were made, but they were always based on the idea that anything could change. But because we went through that process, we knew how this scene would be covered, whether we would be needing lots of shots or not, you know. And so even if the blocking changed, which it invariably did on set, we still had this sort of idea, our intention in terms of how we would shoot it. And then we came up with, we used different filters before the explosion. We can't, I'd love to have shot the film on film. I'm a bit old-fashioned about how it looks, because I've seen my face on it in most of my career, and then I've seen my face on HD for the last 9 years of my career. And I still think my face looks nicer on film, you know. I was a bit younger then, of course, but anyway. I still believe that we should have the right to shoot on film if we want to, and it's something that I think you have to really fight for as a director. But that being said, when you're shooting on HD, we used old lenses. You know, we had to test that, find those lenses. What are they? We used filters in front of those old lenses before the explosion that gave the film a softer feel and a more cinematic, older cinematic feel. And then we used a different set of lenses. Sorry, we used a different set of filters on the lenses for after the explosion, which made the image feel just a little sharper and a little less comfortable. And we bled with costume designer Lindsay McKay and Dan Clancy, our production designer. We sort of bled the colours out of the film. After the explosion, the film becomes more monochromatic as we go along.
Well, you and Martin both do an amazing job, because it does. You can't tell HD. It just looks as beautiful as it does, absolutely. I also love the analogy that it's like music. It's sort of, you have to be able to balance those things out. If you're in one of the 20 cities where we are being simulcast and you have a question for Dakota Fanning and Ewan McGregor, please send them on Twitter, #AmericanPastoralLive. We have one more here for Dakota. Dakota, how do you prepare for your role? How did you prepare for the role? And is there any research you did to prepare for the stutter? That's a good question.
Yeah, that was pretty much the main thing that I prepared for in the film, in a technical way. Ewan and I spoke about it. He sent me some videos that he had found. I found videos of my own, and I just watched them, and then sort of just practiced it alone in a room, and then tried to put it out of my mind and just let it happen when we started shooting. I wanted it to be natural, of course. I didn't want it to feel false or like a put on. There are obviously people out there who deal with this every day, and so I just wanted it to feel authentic, and also that people could also see beyond it and listen to what Mary was actually saying. Do you know what I mean? To sort of weirdly blend in.
Yeah, no, that's beautifully said. We're going to take some questions from the audience in just a moment, but I have one more here from the internet for you. Ewan, how did you juggle directing your first film while also starring in it? Another good question.
It's very much to do with the prep. I think the prep, I was there for a long time before we started shooting. We shot the film in Pittsburgh, and I was there 12 weeks, I think, before we started to shoot the film. And I think if you know you're going to be in front of the camera and behind the camera, then you know everyone that you've hired to help you make the film also know that, and so you go about certain sort of systems, I suppose, in order to make that happen. I always knew I wanted these rehearsals. I had been on set on the Miles Davis film Miles Ahead with Don Cheadle, and he was directing and playing Miles Davis. So I'd been on the receiving end of it, I suppose you would say. I'd been directed by my acting partner, and I'd seen how I didn't know I was going to be doing this then, but I watched Don like a hawk. I was interested to see how he did it, and I sort of employed some of the same. I would watch the first take back, and then that's the only real interruption to the normal rhythm of things, I think, because you do the first take and then you would be saying, excuse me, to the actors, and you'd run off, and I'd stand with Martin and we'd look at the first take back, and then when I went through the following takes, I wouldn't go to the monitor, because I trusted that the shot was as I hoped it would be, and then it was just about the acting, and we would discuss the scene and do some takes. And then I would always trust my feelings. I've always trusted my instincts as an actor. I think we can feel when we get it. You know, I think the actors and the immediate shooting crew, there's a sort of, you know, it's just a feeling when in take 7 or take 6 or something, you know, you feel it on set. And so I just trusted that. And then I would always want to just go straight on. I'd want to just get on to the next shot, and Martin would try me to say, look, Ewan, watch it back, watch the last one back. So I would be reluctantly going to watch the last take. So I'd watch the first and the last take, and I didn't ever feel really like I was wearing 2 hats. It didn't feel like I became the director and then became the actor. Instead, it was just all part and parcel of the same thing, really. Once I forgot my lines when I was in that big scene at the beginning when Lou's grilling Dawn, and the Swede is just standing off to the side. I only had 2 lines. The first one was Dad, and then I had to say Dad. So those were my 2 moments, and I got so lost in watching them, and I was just thinking, oh yeah, this is great, and totally forgot to say one of my dads, you know. But that was one of the only times, I think, when it sort of got in the way.
Did you yell at the director at that point? Yeah. Let's take some questions here from our New York audience. Yes, right here in the middle. I'll repeat your question. Yes, for the blonde one. Yes.
Okay, my question is mostly for Dakota. I know that you've expressed interest in directing, and obviously, being somebody who's first-time director, what's the biggest takeaway that you have from that?
I'll repeat the question so y'all can hear it. For Dakota, what was the big takeaway from working with an actor as his first-time director spot? Because she'd been interested in directing as well.
Yeah, it was really inspiring to see Ewan so kind of seamlessly take on both the role of a director and the role of the lead actor in the film. And I'm the kind of actor, I never like to leave the set. I like to stay and watch sort of everyone and how it works, and that's how I've always been. And this one, I felt like I really wanted to do that, because I definitely do want to direct one day, so it was inspiring. I guess the biggest takeaway is that I can do it, too.
Yeah, you totally can. Yeah. You will.
Let's throw up another hand. Yes, right here.
Since a lot of the film is being told through the lens of Seymour's brother, could he be considered unreliable?
The question is, since the story is told in some ways through Seymour's brother, or certainly through the David Strathairn character, would he be considered unreliable?
Well, this is the greatness of Philip Roth's novel. It's written in 3 very clear sections, and the first one is all Nathan Zuckerman, who is, I suppose, Philip Roth's alter ego perhaps in his novels, and certainly our narrator in the movie. And then he spends a lot of time discussing his past and the Swede when he was younger, and indeed meets the Swede later on in his older years that we don't have in the movie. And then when at the end of the first section of the book, we understand that the other 2 sections are what Nathan Zuckerman has written about the Swede. So yes, you could say that he obviously researches the story, but does he really know that Mary asks her father to kiss her in the car? Does he really know that she went and saw the monk burning? Or is it Nathan Zuckerman's fantasy of the Swede's life? You're right, there's a sort of lens in the way, I suppose, yeah. I like that about the book, and I liked just putting Nathan at the end of the novel. He doesn't come back, Zuckerman. He doesn't bookend the story, but I felt like it was traditional, I suppose, and also I wanted him to come back at the end, so that we are aware that he's been telling us the story.
What he said at the end about what people say about you, really, I felt we brought that point home.
Yeah. Yes, he does that great thought at the end that we get people wrong. That's what makes us human, that we get people wrong is a big and beautiful thought, I suppose.
Has Philip Roth seen the film? Did you show it to him and obviously get some feedback from him?
Yes, he has. He saw the film here in New York City with a friend of his, and I didn't know he was watching it at the time, thank goodness. I would have been terribly nervous. But yes, and then he wrote to his agent, and he allowed his agent to share his thoughts with us. And I was very relieved he liked the film.
We'll take some questions here from the left-hand side. Yeah, right there. Yes.
It's often said that film is a director's medium, that actors are sort of tools to be utilized to serve the director's vision. But since you were sort of wearing like 2 hats on this one, can you talk a little bit about how being an actor helped you in your directorial role, how to maintain a constant tone throughout the film?
The question is how being an actor helped you keep a directorial tone throughout the film.
I think we should get most directors to act, and then we'll see if it's a director's medium or not. It's just not the case. I mean, I think there's this sort of misconception that directors tell us what to do, and it's just not the case. The actor has ownership of the performance and the ownership of the character, and they come to the set with this world that is that person, and the director can steer that character from place to place. And of course, you can have discussions with directors about things that make up your character, but it's sort of a misconception that the director has any ownership over it. I would say that. I could only approach this as an actor, and in terms of the putting of the scenes together and what those scenes are and how they feel is about a collaboration between myself and the amazing cast that I got to work with. And that's the truth of it. So what we're filming is that. Of course, how the rooms look and the music that's on there and the editing and is another collaboration with the production designer, Dan Clancy, and the editor, Melissa Kent. And in a large part, with Martin Rua, it's a real collaboration in terms of how we captured the story. But filmmaking is a huge collaboration, and the nice thing about being the director is that you're involved in all of it. I mean, really, from the beginning to the end. I mean, I wasn't involved in the writing of the script. I did some work with John Romano on notes, but the script that I read was very, very, very good. So there was very minimal my input really into the script that we shot. But thereafter, you have the luxury of being involved in all of the other collaborations that go into making a movie. In fact, you're the only person that does go through all of it, really, I suppose. And that's what I was looking for as a directing experience. Why I was so excited about it was because those creative collaborations are incredibly satisfying, and I would quite like to do it again.
We have time for just about 1 or 2 more. Let's go to the internet for this one, then we'll come back to the live audience. Question is the ending. What happens to Mary? Did you guys ever have discussions about that, about what would happen to Mary? Yeah.
Well, not really. I mean, what we know about Mary is that she comes back at the end, and we get a sense that she's no longer living. She's survived the Jane, her life as a Jane, which she may not have done. It looked very much like she wouldn't do. She's changed. She's older, and she seems quiet and humble, and that's all I've got to say about it.
Successful too. She's carrying a purse. She's nicely dressed. Seems like she's come through some moment that maybe.
All I wanted to present was a woman who she had some sort of very ordinary life now. That's what my feeling was.
Yeah, I think that's what we were going for. I think the fact that she walks past everyone, including her mother, and straight to her father is kind of what I was saying earlier, that's the bond in her life, and that I think that shows that she still doesn't have regret. She still isn't apologizing for what she's done, but this is something that she wants to do.
She's a strong character, no matter what.
That is true.
Excuse us. We have time for just one or two more. Throw up a hand. The lights are really bright in our face. Right there, there's somebody waving. Yes.
Yeah. What led you to the Philip Roth novel? Why did you do that? And did that influence how you cast the film with the other parts?
Yeah.
The question is, what led you into the novel, and did that lead him to the casting of the other parts?
I read the script first. I read John Romano's script 5 years ago, maybe, when I was working in New York City on another project. I was sent the script to read, and I read it in a hotel room, and I was very moved by it, and immediately wanted to play him. I wanted to be the Swede. I was just offered it as an actor. I had never thought to be the director of it at that point. And then the film went through some fits and starts, and it never got made, and it didn't get made. And then we had dates set for March in 2015, and in late 2014, the director who was attached at that point left, and that was so close to us shooting that really we were scrambling around trying to find a director. And I've wanted to direct, like we said, and we started off talking for all these years, and I realised it was it was right in front of my nose. This could be the story. So I spent a day, really a soul-searching day when I was working on a play here, and we had our Mondays off, and I sat down on Monday morning with a script, and I spent all day with it, really focusing on every scene and imagining myself as the Swede, and imagining what it might be like to direct that scene, and did I have the bigger picture? Did I feel like I understood the script at this point? And I felt like I was so excited about it at the end of the day, and I phoned up Tom Rosenberg, who's the head of Lakeshore Entertainment, and I asked him to consider me as the director, and very shortly after then became that. And then we pushed our dates. We pushed them from March to September in 2015, and it gave me 9 months. I finished the play in January, and it gave me 9 months to do nothing but think about this movie, and I then sort of lived in Philip Roth's novel every day. I read it daily. There's a wonderful recording of the novel by the actor Ron Silver, and he was reading me the story whenever I was driving or running, or I sort of about 5 or 6 weeks before we started shooting, put the book aside, and I thought, okay, now I've imbued what I can of Philip Roth's novel. I feel that I was never looking for scenes that weren't in our script. I was just looking for Philip Rothianness, and I trusted that because of my time with his novel, that it would be with me when I directed the film. And I suppose because he likes it, I feel like I might have achieved that to some extent. So
I'm going to wrap up by asking Ewan, what have you learned from all the amazing directors that you've worked with over the years?
Well, I've learned from all of them, really. I mean, what to do, what feels right, what doesn't feel right, what not to do. I think my very first director, Danny Boyle, set the bar very high in what you can expect in that relationship between an actor and a director, and has got a very gentle leadership, and it's certainly one of the most wonderful experiences as an actor to work for him. So therefore, I suppose that's how you can only direct the way it feels. I mean, I've got the luxury of knowing how it feels as the actor, so I suppose I could only direct the way I like to be directed, I guess. And so I learned a lot from Danny Boyle. the way we rehearsed is very much what he would do, and yeah.
Thank you all very much around the country and here in New York City as a landmark cinema.